When I was a small child, I was stung by a bee. As I lay destitute and possibly even dying, my father came up and gave me advice that to this day guides me. He said, "Son, the bees, they'll come for you. And when they do, you just need to repeat this one phrase to scare them away. You just need to yell, 'Boo, bees, boobs.'" What are they? They are bundles of squishy goodness that come in many different shapes and sizes. They are also the reason most of you started drawing in the first place, and why you clicked on this video. But when you first tried your hand at drawing, and after you spent hours and hours using up all of your brain's energy, you realized you needed to call in an expert if you wanted to bring your dreams to life. Because this sucks. And this is art. And so, that's where this video comes in. I will teach you everything you need to know about drawing anime boobs. First, we need to start simple, since we must not forget about the small variant of the bubba. First, we draw a chest. Then, we add mere outlines to convey that there is in fact something squishy here. Then, using key lines to map out the surface, we can use it for our final step to bring our flat-chested waifu to life. Done. The only thing we need to keep in mind when drawing small boobs is to utilize shading more than the lines. Otherwise, they're going to look a lot larger than you intended. Now, we will begin scaling up with a look at a waifu with a moderate-sized chest. This time, we want to use a little bit more lines to help convey the size of our waifu's boobs. Then, after we map out our surface area, we will add our finishing shadows. Just like in the previous step, don't go too crazy with the lines just yet. Otherwise, they will end up looking a little too big. Now, don't get me wrong. Personality is important. However, drawing personality is hard. Therefore, we will instead awaken the full powers of the frontal lobe to scale up further still. Respectfully, we now enter into the large booba phase of the tutorial video. First, our waifu stretches forth for a hug. From our pit line, we have two large boobas, the weight of which causes them to not only hang down, but slightly out to the side. Once fully mapped out, we can begin the process of shading. With it finished, we can see that using more lines to convey larger boobs is in fact more effective. Now you may say, Fate, but what about scaling up from there? What about Uzaki-chan wants to hang out level boobas? To which I would reply, there's no way I would take a respectful and inquisitive look into the teaching of the drawing of the bubba into a bubba that only exists in the excess of scale of anime, because that would be pervy. Now that we have seen what the free booba looks like, we now must look at containing these bundles of goodness by imprisoning them with cloth. First, we start with a humble chest. Then, add our cups with some bubba spillage over the tops. Be sure to add the contrast between the firm containment and then the soft bubba which fights for its freedom. With some quick mapping out of the humble boob, we can then shade to finish. Now what about going beyond the possibilities of the bra and entering into the new territory of the push-up bra? With these, we want to draw a very tight, firm cup that is much higher than the previous variant. Then, with yet again the bubba yearning for its freedom, it tries to escape. We want more spillage, and to push the top of our bubba well above our pit line. With some quick mapping, we are then ready to shade. Now, if you have to ask yourself, did I draw enough bubba spillage? The answer is simply no, you did not. You just need to keep in mind, in the realm of anime, it is okay to exaggerate the anatomy. So, if we want to convey a push-up bra, we just need to exaggerate a little bit of how that would look. As the ancient saying goes, fortune favors the brave. So we as artists must also draw the brave. To accomplish this, we will draw a pair of moderately sized bubbas. However, notice that these bubbas seem to have a modest support, keeping them not only closer together, but pushed up slightly. We will then map out the bubbas and use that as our base to draw the ever-daring micro bikini. All we need to do afterwards is draw full booba squish to show where the cloth is being swallowed by the boob. Then, with some shading, our daring waifu comes to life. Wow, she's brave. And now, how would a bubba react to pressure? And no, not the pressure of keeping yourself afloat in an ever-deteriorating economy. I'm talking about the pressure of laying upon her chest to relax. First, we will start with a new style of torso. Then, with our center line to guide us, we will draw the boobs. These bubbas have encountered what we call a flat surface. And so, with nowhere to go, they retreat out in every direction. With some simple shading and some mapping, we can then see how the humble boob looks when it is pressed upon a floor. We now enter into the only thing that truly makes men fear. It isn't war, nor famine, not even the looming weight of death approaching at any moment. It is the angry woman. We start with the arms crossed, which admittedly look very long because our torso is so cropped. However, just bear with me, okay? Doesn't matter. It's not going to get in the way of the real meat and potatoes of this guide. So, to begin, we start with drawing some bubbas with the exaggerated support of the push-up bra, so raise them up a little bit. However, there's nothing squeezing them together all that much, so we want to spill them over the sides ever so slightly. And with some simple mapping, we can then shade to finish our angry waifu. So anyway, so there I went. Whoa, 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 what was that? That's funny, I could have sworn something was there. Anyways, on to... Whoa, 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 whoa. Sorry, guys, I don't know what's happening. It's as though the steps of drawing a wet t-shirt are appearing on the screen. I don't know how any of this is possible. The only thing I can think of asking at a time like this is... Why are you watching? We now enter into a joyous portion of the tutorial. One in which our waifu has just been given a free boba tea, and is now jumping for joy. Once mapped, we can add the girlies getting goofy. One is flying out to the side. The other is bunched up and slightly more rounded than normal. With our final mappings, we can see the vision of our joyous, gelatinous bundles. Then, with some final shading, we are all wrapped up. And, if you think ahead, unlike me, then you can have her arms up to further indicate a gleeful leap, since my finished drawing with the arms down looks a little bit sketchy. We now enter into the perspective of the Short King. With this perspective, we only ever see our wonderful waifu characters from one angle. A low angle, that is. Thus we begin with the chest in a new position. With some mapping, we're ready to draw the bubbas. Keep our bubbas pushing out so that they come around the collarbone. Then, after some more surface mapping, we can shade. In the finished piece, notice how I even brought the collarbones in a little bit further to express that we are below our waifu, looking up. Sometimes, waifus are small beans. As such, we may be taller than them and look from a heightened perspective. So, for this section, we will look at the humble yet effective head pat perspective. Starting with a torso similar to our relaxing waifu, we will then add a center line. We want our bubbas not sticking straight out, but having that classic little mound shape. Be sure to get the width correct here. You do not want to have skinny, long bubbas. That is weird. Then, with some mapping to help express angles, we can shade to finish. In conclusion, there are many ways to draw the humble boob. In fact, so many ways I can't possibly put them all into one video. However, with this video, I guarantee you have all that you need to help you envision and structure your waifu's chest later. Keep in mind that drawing good boobs is hard. This is because we see them every day. And as such, when they're slightly off, it makes the whole waifu look chopped. However, do not give up. Just keep practicing, and eventually you'll get the hang of it. Now, like and subscribe if you would like to become the greatest artist the world has ever seen.